Welcome, everybody, to the Waiting Room Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Waite, and today I've brought my buddy Sam on. We are going to talk a little bit about his military career and his post-military life. And as always, I'm going to cover a little bit of sports and, little pissy stuff because that's part of what I do on the show. So to lead off, again, I kind of want to keep you guys in suspense. I want to keep you guys watching to hear Sam's story. So we're going to start off with the NBA Finals. We all know I'm petty. I don't like something, so I'm just not going to root for it. And that's where I'm at right now. Phoenix is up 2-0. I don't care. I said they were going to win. I'm not rooting for them. It's all Chris Paul's fault. I can't. I'll be happy for him. He's a great player. He deserves to win. I told a buddy earlier today, I think he's probably one of the top 3 point guards to ever play the game. But realistically, it's just one. I can't root for a guy that's that talented and does shit, like Pat Beverly to agitate, his opposing team. I get it. It's effective. It works. There's a reason for it. The name of the game is to win by any means necessary, as long as you're not punching a guy in the face. But I can't root for him. But doesn't matter. This entire NBA playoffs, I've been pretty wrong. And so with that, Phoenix is up 2-0. But I'll call bullshit. I'll call bullshit for this reason. I'm not saying that there's not a little bit of home cooking that goes on with sports in general, whether you're the home team in football, basketball. I feel like it doesn't really affect baseball, a little bit of hockey. There's some home cooking. And we kind of saw that in game 1. Game 2, if your name wasn't Giannis, you weren't getting to the free throw line. You kept seeing guys hit the deck, get hit in the face. Kind of didn't matter. It went both ways. But if your name wasn't Giannis Antetokounmpo, you weren't on the free throw line. I feel like that sort of works in favor for a team that shoots on the outside. The reason for that is Milwaukee's not going to outshoot anybody. They're not. They weren't going to outshoot Brooklyn. They weren't going to outshoot Atlanta. They weren't going to outshoot this Phoenix team. They just weren't. So if they're not getting to the free throw line, despite all of their inside shots, and I'll throw it out there, they shot 93 shots last night. 31 of them were three-pointers. And a lot of it came towards the end of the game. They're just trying to get back in the game, make it close, but they're beating a lot inside, and really the only guy shooting free throws was Giannis. He had 18, which is more than the rest of Phoenix had combined. I get that, but Phoenix was shooting from the outside the entire game. Again, I know a little home cooking goes into it, maybe a little less this game too, but I will say, with all of the inside work that Milwaukee did, they deserve some more trips to the free throw line. I think it's funny, this whole counting thing with Giannis, the 10 count. They get to 5 about as fast as they get to 7. They count 1 through 5 real quick, and then they take the actual 2 seconds to get to 6 and 7. Again, it's funny. It's clearly working. It's what you do as fans. When I was a little kid, I went to Sacramento Kings games, and we had these little foam thunder sticks that would make all kinds of noise when guys shot free throws. It was funny at the time, but it's one of those things I'm like as an adult, it's kind of agitating. It's funny. It works. I understand the reason for doing it. But if Giannis is the only one going to the line, he went 11 of 18. 11 of his 42 points came from the line. Could have had 7 more. It's not Shaq bad. It's not Ben Simmons bad. But again, if he's the only one going to the free throw line, you have Chris Middleton going 5 of 16. I'd say he probably deserved a couple of free throws. That's it. Just a couple. Their entire game was predicated around banging inside, and it worked for a little while, but eventually a numbers game catches up. Phoenix shot 20 of 40, 50% from three-point range. The math there, that's why they do it. The analytics support shooting three-pointers. However, Milwaukee's not built that way, and so they go 9 of 31 They don't even shoot 30. They don't even shoot 30%. It's just what it is. Numbers game's going to keep catching up with them if they're not getting to the free throw line. Drew Holiday was more aggressive. He goes for 17 points, but it's on 21 shots. He also had a total of 3 free throws. Again, it's a little embarrassing when you consider 3 of his total shots were 3-pointers, and the rest of them were layups. Some of them were just straight missed. And that's okay. I mean, it's not okay. It's embarrassing. It hurts my feelings because I don't want Phoenix to win because Chris Paul's being an asshole. And I'm being an asshole rooting against him. I don't care. But, on the support side for Phoenix, Mikal Bridges, I still don't know how this guy fell to them. He's a talented guy at Villanova, him and his brother. It's one of those things. He comes up 27 points. They're always going to need a third guy. And right now, the third guy for Phoenix is coming through. Chris Paul goes for 23. Devin Booker, 31, 7 of 12 from 3. His 3 balls finally falling, which it hadn't been for the majority of the playoffs. He'd been probably their worst 3-point shooter as far as their regular rotation players go. I will say this, though. The other little irritation I'm getting from Phoenix, and it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm just saying every time that Phoenix has Devin Booker or Chris Paul open, it's usually because they give their defender a forearm shiver. Again, it's not called. It's not a foul. It was a foul when, Chris Paul finally Devin Booker puts his elbow into Pat Connaughton's face. It's a common foul, I guess. I figured, elbowing a guy in the face is probably a little more than a common foul, but that's not what they called. It's not what they called. Doesn't matter. On the detracting side for Milwaukee, again, Coach Bud is a game-to-game adjuster. He's not an in-game adjuster. It's probably the biggest knock on him, and it's why he's never carried any of his talented teams to a finals until this year. Whatever they're doing on defense, it worked for a while. It did. But they keep falling to the trap of the driving kick. They'll get 2-3 guys collapse on a guy driving to the basket, and then the guy will kick it out to the open man. The open man, you'd rather have an open shot than not. And again, 20 of 40, they missed some shots, but again, 50% from 3 is going to catch up with you on the defensive end. And they lost by 10. Realistically, if they're playing man defense, they're not sucking in on those guys. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's not. But I expect a little bit different at home from Milwaukee. Yes, probably a little bit of home cooking for them while they're at home. But again, it's just little things right now that are driving me nuts with basketball. Sam, hey bud.
Hey,
how you feeling about these NBA finals, man?
Do what?
I said, how you feeling about these NBA finals?
Sorry. I know nothing about what's going on. I haven't followed Phoenix probably since about the same time that I stopped watching sports in general, which was back in like 2001. So,
okay. So tell what were you following in 2001?
So around that time, so I would have been in grade school for me.
Okay.
Like 6th or 7th grade, I think. And I was actually living in Goodyear, Arizona at the time, which is why I was following a lot of Phoenix sports. But we would go to Bank One Ballpark all the time to watch the Diamondbacks play, and that was just how we spent most of our family time, or like friends would want to go. And, I was along for the ride for the most part, but I was really into it because I was playing, baseball in school, and I was playing basketball and all that stuff. I was super into sports when I was younger. But yeah, where we lived, so it was weird. I had a couple brushes with fame. One in particular was Jason Kidd used to golf
wow.
at Estrella Mountain where we lived. And he actually had a summer home like right down the street from ours. Our regular home, our only home. He had a one of his third, fourth, fifth, whatever house at the time. But so he would stay there whenever he would just start hitting the links in Arizona. And he had a special golf cart there. It was a Hummer. It was like an H2 yellow golf cart.
That's fun.
I got to drive that thing around a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So because my mom actually worked there, she was a merchandiser for Oakley at the pro shop. And so she was constantly meeting people that were, coming through the course and stuff like that, meeting pro-ams and pros all the time. And obviously people like Jason Kidd that would be there occasionally. I actually got a jersey signed of his number 32 back then because I had purchased it at a game. And then my mom was like, "Hey, he comes through the shop sometimes. Do you want me to take it up there next time he's through and get it signed?" And I was like, yeah.
Way to go, Mom.
Yeah, so I've got that framed somewhere. I don't know where it's at right now, but I've been asking her about it actually a lot lately because I was like, I need to have that up.
Well, that's not yours no more. That's Mom's now.
Yeah. This was also at the height of his questionable activity because he had that abuse case going on. And
right. Well, it was about the case that ultimately got him shipped to New Jersey. Yeah.
So that was part of the reason that I kind of fell out of sports was, I in some ways kind of idolized this guy because I was, playing basketball and I was like, this guy's really good, he's a local pro and stuff. And then that stuff came down the pipe and I was kind of like, ooh, famous people suck sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, there's that famous saying, never meet your heroes. And I mean, 2021 and, on is kind of indicative of it. The more access we have to these people, the more it's like, oh, maybe we should look to people that, we know are successful, as role models, not these people we see on TV. I was probably the same way as a kid. I really was into everything. And to be honest, it's none of the political stuff has ever turned me off from sports. Believe in the whole free speech thing. You can speak on what you want as long as you're educated about it. But the other stuff, the legal stuff, kind of, I'm rolling back into it as much as I can, especially with the podcast. But for a time, I was like, I don't really care about sports because these people are kind of terrible.
Yeah. And I think for me, I kind of shifted away from celebrating individual players at that point, which I know is kind of like a weird thing for a kid to consider. But I started to kind of follow teams at that point more than individual players.
Right.
And so I got really into watching Diamondbacks games. Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, Luis Gonzalez, Craig Counsell, Tony Womack. I mean,
so yeah, I was about to say you definitely were watching.
It's just, and I'm blanking on one of their relief pitchers' names, and he was so awesome because he was a what do they call it? A submariner pitcher. So he would throw.
I think I can't remember his name either. I know who you're talking about.
I feel so bad because he was really good. It was just short burst.
Right.
So man, I'm gonna I'm gonna feel so dumb if I remember it at some point, like an hour from now.
Hey, I mean, you had some. This podcast is is for everyone. So if you at any point in the podcast you remember who to shout it out.
Yeah.
I might get a little thrown off by it, but just be like, yeah, it's this guy.
So I was watching this movie. Oh my gosh! Okay, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's. I'm trying. To be fair, while we're talking, I'm trying to find out who this guy is because I'm like, who?
Okay, yeah. But I loved all these guys. Did you just find it?
Was it Kim?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
He was a Red Sox at one point.
Oh, nice. Yeah. He was one of my favorites. I always loved when he would get put in there because I was like, yeah. I just loved that style.
Well, it's something interesting to watch, and especially if they're actually effective, because a lot of those guys, they really do have short-lived careers. The Submariner Pitch.
Yeah.
I know Moneyball like famously went into the fact that another guy like was just never considered because of that. And now it's going to bug me because I know his name, but it is blanking right now. But it was an Oakland A's pitcher who was a Submariner. Oh, it's Chad Bradford.
Okay.
Was another guy who just they never looked at him because they're like, oh well, he throws funny. Kim, he threw funny, but at the same time he just had a very short shelf life of like, man, he was good, and then when it was gone, it was gone. And I feel like with a little different training, a little bit more support for how he threw, he probably would have been more effective today than he was then. But again, those guys are just entertaining to watch because you're like, this is not normal. And anything that's abnormal to watch, you're just like, it's kind of fun to watch. Like I don't know why. Maybe just again, I don't know. Yeah. I don't see this a whole lot. So,
I definitely when I saw him pitch because it would only be for maybe 2 or 3 innings. Right. That's about as long as he was good. I tried to emulate that as much as possible because I was trying to be a pitcher on my team and stuff. And I could do that for maybe a handful of pitches, and then I would throw my arm out. Like it did not last long. It's just so hard on your joints and everything.
It definitely looks like it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you're slinging your arm around like a rubber band, and it's just
Well, and people always say like throwing a ball, period, is not like a natural motion for your body to deal with. So when you have to torque your body in a way that it's not super calm, you're like, oh, okay, this is painful.
Yeah. But yeah, my dad actually set up in the backyard. He had a tire hanging from the fence and with like a backstop inside of it so that I could aim for the strike zone. And
that's awesome.
And there I would get those satisfying little fox on the wood every once in a while and just go pop. And but yeah, dude, I could only do that for about 20 minutes. And I was just like, good God, I don't know how this guy does it for multiple innings. Like, ugh.
Practice, man. I mean, it's one of those things that's the only way I can imagine is he kept doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it because, but it's one of those things that, the longer you do it also, puts your body at a little bit more risk, even if you are getting better.
For sure. But yeah, so I followed the Diamondbacks pretty religiously back then. We went to as many games as possible, all the collector cups and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was always exciting when Randy Johnson would get close to a no-hitter or just throw like an insane amount of strikeouts or whatever.
Oh yeah,
well then. So, growing up watching baseball and stuff, the only people that I ever really heard of outside of the Diamondbacks in regular conversation was the Yankees, because they were always going to the World Series and yeah. And being in the Southwest, I was like, screw those guys, freaking East Coast weirdos.
Man, that's you're not the only one.
Yeah. But in 2001, the Diamondbacks go to the World Series against the Yankees. And so I get super stoked. We spend every night of the game, of each game, watching as a family. We're all in the living room watching, getting super stoked.
It's awesome.
And yeah, so what did it come? It came down to Game 7, I think.
Yeah.
And so tense matchup the whole time. And then Luis Gonzalez is up to bat. There's a couple people on base. There's already like 2 outs. And he hits that perfect shot into center field, just over second base.
Little blooper just right over everyone's head.
Yeah, man. And all of us in the living room just jump, and it's like we're in the stadium at that point. It's so freaking loud in there, and we're freaking out, fist pumping, and all this stuff. It was awesome. Amazing. And so they win, and we end up getting the DVD that they release afterward. The story of the victory and everything. And it was awesome to watch the Yankees fall to my, at the time, favorite team, and all these players and stuff that I looked up to as an athlete and everything. It was a really great moment. The next year, I don't remember exactly who all got traded away.
It was a lot of the team, because they went from all the guys that they had. They lost a good deal of them. I want to say 1 or 2 guys retired. They had kind of completed their goal there.
But yeah, a few of my favorite players were gone, playing for other teams. And that's when I questioned. I was like, a lot of people are fans of teams for their entire life.
Right.
And I understand that a little more than following teams for a short period, like if they're bandwagon fans and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I understand lifetime support of a franchise rather than support of a team, if that makes sense. Because for me, I looked at the Diamondbacks as that list of players, Tony Womack and Craig Counsell and Luis Gonzalez and Kurt Schilling and all that. And when half of them were gone, I was like, it's not really the Diamondbacks anymore to me, because, I grew up with a completely different set of dudes. And, I'd already decided that I didn't really like following specific players and stuff like that. So I just kind of fell out of it. It felt weird to want to go see the Diamondbacks playing. It's like, it's not really the Diamondbacks. It's not the team that won the World Series. It's not the team that I followed. And the whole trading thing, while I understand why the players do it, and why franchises, offer that stuff, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. Because that wasn't how the concept of a team really works in my mind. And so I was kind of out of it. And that's the last time I really paid attention to sports. I would watch, extreme sports. I still followed that stuff. Like I watched a lot of Supercross.
Okay.
Because I also rode dirt bikes and raced and stuff. And so I still, had my favorites that were at the professional level. Still hate Ricky Carmichael to this day. But
what?
Yeah, everybody loves Ricky Carmichael.
Like, when I was younger and I followed Supercross a little heavier, Ricky Carmichael was my favorite. And it might be,
of course it is.
It might have been the fact that he was winning, but it was just one of those things. It was like,
Jeremy
I don't
McGrath, man, number 1, Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah,
always will be. Those frosted tips.
I hate
Guy
that.
Fieri before he was a thing.
It's funny because that's exactly why I disliked Jeremy McGrath. I was just like,
Really?
That's the only reason. I was just like, your face is aesthetically displeasing. It wasn't really your face. It was across the tip. I was like, I'm out. I can't root for this guy.
Oh man, I've met him because he was at a Stadium Cross event that I went to, and my dad actually got an image. He pulled it out of a magazine or something and blew it up and just had Jeremy sign it when we met him. So that's also something that I have framed somewhere else. I don't have a Ricky Carmichael signature, and for good reason. Dude, I was so upset. So
I don't know why. He was great.
So they came out with an RC car that was a dirt bike that would do tricks and stuff off of a little plastic ramp that you could get with it. And Jeremy McGrath was the first version that they did. And so, of course, we bought it because we're McGrath fans. But a couple of years later, it was the Ricky Carmichael RC. And it was the Ricky Carmichael RC. And I was so upset. I felt so, slighted by that because I was like, man, I bought it when it first came out, and it was Jeremy McGrath and all these young child fans. Yeah. I followed James Stewart for a long time. Obviously, Travis Pastrana. Yeah. Before he was doing Nitro Circus and everything. We were huge Travis Pastrana fans. Because
I feel like most, if you followed any kind of like dirt bike sport at all, like you to a point had to have been a fan of Travis Pastrana, just because he was typically the first for a lot of stuff. For a lot of the most exciting tricks that they do, they're doing a bunch of stuff today, and it's like, oh well, who's the first to start doing this shit? It was Travis Pastrana.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we used to watch the X Games, and well, at least my brother and I would watch the X Games, like you're talking about how your family watched baseball. Like we'd sit there and watch, like, cool, X Games are on all day. Like, looks like we're not leaving the couch today.
Yeah. And my family, like most of my family, was like that with Supercross and X Games stuff, at least where dirt bikes were concerned.
Yeah.
And because we all went out and rode, and what was the name of that movie? There was an original, like a Disney Channel original movie, and I want to say it was called Motocrossed.
Or I think maybe it was Motocross.
My sister fell in love with that movie. Now, we all liked the movie because when we saw it, they had, I'm pretty sure Jeremy McGrath makes an appearance in there. A couple other famous guys show up at one of the meets. Yeah. But we were all like, fangirling over the cameos that they threw in there. But my sister and my dad super bonded over that movie. Mostly because it was the what is that old story? They did it in She's the Man also. It's an old Shakespearean tale. Crap. Anyway, so she takes the role of her brother. She pretends to be her brother or whatever. Because
unfortunately I didn't follow, like, I just don't remember enough Shakespeare to help you out there.
Yeah. And it's one that I've never read or seen.
Oh, I thought there was like a ghost there or something. You look through.
No, I made sure to get it so I could show proof that I'm not insane. It was a mosquito. So they super bonded over that. My sister wanted to start riding and racing and everything, and because of that movie, I think at least most of it was because of that movie.
I made my girlfriend watch that movie in the last like 6 months. She's like, why? I was like, I don't know. I loved it when I was a kid. I was like, I'm not going to pretend like it's a great movie in hindsight, but when Disney Plus came out, I was like, oh, what do they have for Disney original movies? And I was like, oh, they have Motocrossed. They have Brink. I was like, I'm going to make you watch so many terrible Disney movies and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, Brink and Motocrossed. What was that? 13th Year. That was a big one.
Yep.
Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. That was a good one.
Wasn't a fan.
You haven't seen that one?
No, I watched it. I just was like,
You don't like it? I love food. So for me,
so why? It was one of those things. I can't remember the first thing that I saw that kid in, and it just was kind of like, turn, because I'm pretty sure that's the same kid that ended up in like That's So Raven, isn't it?
Maybe. I don't remember That's So Raven all that well.
I don't either. That's why I can't like tell you for sure. But I want to say it's that same kid, and I was just like, like you just never was one of those Disney kids that I was like, I gotta watch this guy.
Favorite one though is probably still Smart House.
I mean, Smart House has made me just paranoid of like advancing technology.
Sorry, you're breaking up quite a bit.
I said Smart House is what makes me afraid of advancing technology. Just because I'm like, oh, cool. So like if we get anything to fully automate and then it becomes smart and intuitive, then it's going to start thinking. I was like, it's basically Terminator, except the house isn't trying to kill them. It's just trapping them. But I was like, the smart house is basically Skynet. Like it becomes self-aware, and you're like, oh shit! Like it's just missing murder. Which, if it wasn't a Disney Channel movie, it probably would have involved murder.
Yeah, probably.
I'm just saying, if anybody wants to make a movie and improve upon it, I'm just saying you do Smart House with murder in it, and be like, oh, this is terrible.
What was the? I think the band was called Five. It was a boy band was it Five? I think it was just called something like that. And then there was a Irish girl band called Bewitched, which they did some music. Both of them. So I'm pretty sure Five did. I'm gonna freak out. Five did a song. They did the.
I lost him, guys. Sorry. Well, let's see if we can get Sam back. I'm not sure what happened there. Until we get Sam back, I'm going to. Oh, there he is.
Back, I think. What happened?
I don't know. You got disconnected. You were there and then you weren't. You were talking and just you disappeared. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not sure what happened there.
I'm not either. Everything seems fine now. But I'm gonna keep my eye on it.
Technology here's talking shit about us.
I guess.
It's like, hey, you have a problem with technology, I'm just going to turn myself off.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, the boy band did the jump, the house is jumping song that was playing at the house party that he wasn't supposed to have. And so then Disneyland had a concert featuring Five and Bewitched. Me and my brother and sister were so into them at the time. We recorded that concert and kept it as a VHS.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we watched it all the time.
I'm just glad you can admit things like that. I don't know. Man,
I don't care what people think about me anymore. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about Disney Channel original movies. But yeah, like all those movies were so awesome. And Yeah, so I still watched and supported a lot of extreme sports. I started to get into snowboarding, and so I was following people like Shaun White.
Flying Tomato.
Do what?
I said the Flying Tomato.
Yes, the Flying Tomato. I forgot that was his nickname.
He looks like my brother, so we'd make jokes with my brother all the time. The only difference was that Shaun White's hair looked a little bit better taken care of.
Right.
Mind you, I was in no position to talk because my shoulder length hair was not well taken care of either.
Yeah, his hair it's pretty nice.
Hey man, you got a pretty nice head of hair there yourself. So
thanks. I spend way more money on it than I should, but I don't care. It smells nice.
Nothing. If you're gonna have hair, you take care of it. That's all.
Yeah.
I can't. This is about what I'm allowed to have. I'm really pushing the limits there. But speaking of disappointment.
Uh-oh.
UFC 264 is coming up tomorrow. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of spaced this was happening at all, which is uncommon for me because I love Conor McGregor. He's probably one of the only like super cocky people that I actually like. I think it was mainly because I started catching his fights when he was on Fight Night, when he wasn't big, but he was still talking shit. But they're going for the trilogy fight. I'll be honest, I can't pick against Conor just because he seems kind of focused. I say kind of because I watched his press conference from yesterday, and we start targeting people's wives and shit. I'm like, I start thinking like maybe you're a little afraid of losing the fight. But then I also consider it's Conor McGregor, and he does not give a fuck. I said, I'm hoping for an entertaining fight. I have a hard time believing he's going to lose 2 in a row. He's never lost 2 in a row in his career. I'm hoping for something entertaining. The reason I say disappointing is just there's a couple of fights on the card that I'm like, oh, you still exist. So Tai Tuivasa is a big old Samoan guy, is fighting Greg Hardy, who, if anybody watches my show that hasn't, or sorry, for those that are watching the show that haven't before, I just diametrically opposed to anybody who's guilty of abusing women. And Tai Tuivasa fights Greg Hardy, who very famously was with the Panthers. Apparently beat his girlfriend to a pulp, threw her on a pile of guns, and then, which I find odd.
What?
Yeah, it was a weird story. But essentially, he paid her to not show up. Was what happened. I understand, he wasn't found guilty of shit. I don't care. Typically, if you're, a big ass dude, accused of beating a woman and she's got bruises all over her, you probably hit her. Just saying. So in that regards, I'm just hoping Tai Tuivasa just, smashes his fucking face in, because fuck Greg Hardy. Fortunately, somebody already smashed Greg Hardy's face in his last fight. So he's coming off a loss. Tai Tuivasa, I don't know a whole lot about him. I know the last guy he fought, it was his first time fighting in the UFC. So I can't really make predictions on that. That's just where I'm at with it. I don't know. Gilbert Burns fights Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy hasn't been Wonder Boy in a while. He's got a couple of good fights under his belt, but it's not against this real competition. Gilbert Burns just lost to Kamaru Usman, which everybody's losing to Usman. So I'm probably going to give the edge to Burns. However, it's kind of a ticking clock for both these guys. Whoever loses this fight probably needs to get close to hanging it up. You start getting to your mid to late 30s in a professional fighting sport. You start weighing whether that money is worth your long-term health. And that's just personally how I feel about it. They both free to keep fighting for as long as they want until they're punch drunk. I would just hope, mid to late 30s, you start considering life after professional fighting. There's a female fight on the big card. Irene Aldana is facing, oh gosh, I forget her name. It's Kunitskaya. Aldana lost to Holly Holm on decision. Kunitskaya beat the last person that Aldana beat. So I'll be honest, I don't follow a whole lot of female fighting. It's less enjoyable if it's not the top, the top fighters, or Angie Hill. I love watching Angie Hill fight because she, for God knows what reason, is always just smiling when fighting, and I'm just like, oh, like you're just generally happy. And
or a psycho.
I don't know. I heard her on the Joe Rogan podcast. The first, that's when I started following her. She came on the Joe Rogan podcast, and she was just entertaining, but like her voice was just, she's really excited and about fighting. And I was like, oh, you sound just happy about doing this. You're right.
That's good.
She might be crazy. I don't know, but I love Angie Hill. She's gotten kind of screwed on some of her last few fights.
I don't know. There's something about like smiling so much so that the audience can tell while you're fighting just seems kind of creepy.
I'll be honest. Like I understand, super off-putting. That would be me though. Like if I was to ever make it, far enough to be, on television, fighting, people would be like, oh, why is Kyle smiling? And be like, oh, this is
pull Tyler Durden and just laugh and throw your blood all over somebody's face.
I mean, not that crazy, but if you're gonna do something, you should love it, and
yeah.
To be fair, that's why I think Connor's kind of fallen off with some of his shit, is because I don't know if he loves the money making more than he loves fighting, and that's kind of where it's at. Like I said, you got to weigh whether the money is good enough to keep fighting. The older you get, and he keeps getting more and more money. But like I said, if I'm gonna be fighting people professionally, I better enjoy it. That's my 2 cents on it. Otherwise, you're gonna affect your long-term health, and we've all kind of seen what happens to people. We all watched Muhammad Ali for years. Just you're like, man, if he had like 1 or 2 less fights, it'd be a little less tragic. Not the last one. I've got two other fights. Sean O'Malley's fighting some guy who's never fought in the UFC before. It's one of those things where I'm like, I enjoyed watching Sean O'Malley get knocked out 2 fights ago. He won his last fight. I hope this random dude beats the shit out of him. I don't know why I dislike Sean O'Malley. I just do. Again, it's one of those things. I look at your face and I'm like, I guess I just don't like you. And that's how I feel about Sean O'Malley. I'm like, you know what? I hope he gets knocked out. And then last, Ryan Hall, for anybody that really, really follows UFC, he won the season with Conor McGregor, Uriah Faber. He's won 4 straight fights. However, he has not fought since 2019. Whether it's an injury thing or they just can't find the right fight for him. He's fighting a guy who's 10-0 in MMA, but he's never fought in the UFC before. It should be a good matchup. Both of those guys are submission guys. For anybody that watched that UFC or the Ultimate Fighter seasons, Ryan Hall is known for kind of being a weird dude who prides himself on being a very technical fighter. So again, hopefully it's a good fight. There's a couple other names on there. Carlos Condit's on the card. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Again, a lot of the big fights, are really what people are watching for. Some of the smaller fights, maybe not so much. That's it for sports, man. That's it. That's all we got.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, it's only 45. To be fair, we threw some Disney in there, but we're like, we're 45 minutes in. And I was like, you know what, 45 minutes.
Let's get back into my wheelhouse. So Winnie the Pooh, amazing show. What? All right. I don't want to have a freaking because I could have a 3-hour discussion on how great that stuff is. But anyway, what do you think about Logan Paul trying to make a name for himself in UFC?
To be fair, well, he's not trying to make his name.
With boxing, right? Boxing.
Well, it's not even so much that he's trying to make a name for himself. In that, Logan Paul's very upfront that he's an entertainer. Jake Paul is the one who's like, I really want to be like a professional fighter. And again, guys that have these YouTube platforms, that have a very big following, they're like, I'm trying to find a new way to entertain, or I'm trying to find my way into something, because that's what it is. Most of the time, it's not just what you know, it's who you know, and everybody knows Jake and Logan Paul for better or for worse. But Logan Paul is very, very open. He's like, I'm an entertainer. This is why I do stuff. I don't, him not getting knocked out against Floyd Mayweather, which I never thought, Floyd Mayweather was going to try to knock him out.
I wish he had.
There's no real benefit for Floyd Mayweather to knock him out. There was some added benefit for Floyd to do it to Conor because Conor talks so much shit. And realistically, people always talk about the crossover game between boxing and UFC or mixed martial arts. Mm-hmm. And realistically, there wasn't a real a monetary benefit. Like Floyd Mayweather's not making more money by knocking out Logan Paul. Like nobody like, oh, you knocked out a non-professional fighter.
Yeah, it's like punching below your class, like.
Right, and that's the thing is, people said, "Hey, Logan Paul didn't make a fool of himself." I'm like, well, yeah. Realistically, all he had to do is not get knocked out. And if you don't get knocked out by a guy that's not trying to knock you out, it's a little less impressive.
Well, also, wasn't there that moment where it was kind of questionable whether he was still conscious because Floyd was like holding him up?
Yeah, I mean, there was that, but I mean, even I think it might have just been he might have been tired. But like that's the thing though. It's like
I definitely sleep like this when I'm tired. I'm just gonna turn stiff as a board. I think he was unconscious.
he probably was, but that's the thing is they were selling an entertainment product.
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the Pat. I went to go watch it at a place where I didn't have to pay for it. I wouldn't pay for it just for the simple fact that. Is the Pacquiao Mayweather fight basically tells me all I need to know about some of these prize fights. The Conor Mayweather fight was a little more entertaining. They didn't like each other. There was a lot more effort put into it. But Pacquiao Mayweather happened probably 5 years too late. They kind of hugged each other. The next day, you see both of them, very few bruises. They're there for the payday and to sell their thing. Logan Paul's again, he's trying to make money. He won just by not getting knocked out. I don't know which next thing he's gonna do. I know Jake Paul wants to keep fighting. I think Logan Paul said like that's not his future. His future isn't in boxing; it's in entertaining. I honestly won't be surprised the day that Jake Paul signs with like WWE or something like that. Or does something with pro wrestling, if he hasn't already. But yeah, he's an entertainer. I don't see anything wrong with it. Yes, I would have loved to see him get knocked out.
Yeah, I mean for other stuff, other reasons, not because he was trying to be a fighter. Yeah, like had he turned out to be a successful fighter, like more power to you, man. Do whatever you can to escape your somewhat childish, crappy past, but
and that's the things we've watched that dude for like a while now.
Yeah,
like, we've all kind of watched him just be like kind of what all famous people do. Like they figure out how to be famous, and I feel like a lot of famous people go through like that I'm an asshole stage. And you know what? I hope he's past it. I don't know. I kind of don't really care. He is who he is. He ain't gonna change for me or you or anybody.
Yeah.
Again, he wants to make money and entertain people however he can. I guarantee, if whatever the next hot trend is, he'll probably try to be out in front of it to make money on it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I've got no problem with it. Again,
did his movie ever come out? They had a movie.
Oh God, they had
so I'm pretty sure, I can't be 100% certain, but wasn't he in Hunger Games?
I have no clue.
I think he was one of the District 1 alphas, but
interesting.
I think. But there was I want to say a couple of years ago, and this might actually be 4 or 5 years ago at this point. There was a movie that he was going to be in, and it might have been like a YouTube original or something, and some weird thing like that. But
so I just Googled his. He was in pro wrestling. So I just Googled his filmography, and he's in a movie and what's probably a sequel called The Thinning, which is a YouTube exclusive. So
okay, yeah,
that was probably it. I've never heard of it until you brought it up. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I remember seeing advertising kind of shortly after his trip to Japan. And so there was a lot of
I've never heard of any of the other people in this movie. So, oh wait, that's a lie. There's a girl from Cobra Kite who was a Disney kid. She was in it.
I didn't watch any of. What is Cobra Kai on? Is that on Netflix or?
So it used to be a YouTube show, and now it is on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
nice. I haven't watched any of it. I almost wore my Cobra Kai shirt, but I didn't buy it because of the show.
Like I said, I think the show is what it is. Like it's one of those. It's like anything they're doing now. You're trying to catch an audience that's nostalgic about it, and then maybe catch a new audience. I don't know. I do definitely watch it just because I'm like, Karate Kid. Like I don't know how many times I watch those movies as a kid. I want to I was very interested when they're like, yeah, but we're not really focused on Daniel LaRusso here. I was like, even better.
Daniel-san had his own movies.
Exactly. I mean, I'm glad they incorporate they do what they have to. They incorporate him more into the later seasons. But yeah, I'm glad that they're like, hey, we're gonna look at Johnny Lawrence and what happened to his life. Nothing good. Basically what happens to all kids who peak in high school.
Yeah.
So again, I wanted to bring you on. We're 53 minutes in. We haven't even gotten to you.
Ooh.
We got a little bit about you, but I did want to I wanted to bring you on because you're one of, as we were talking about before we started the show, you're one of those few people that I know that's really happily doing stuff post-military career. And I've got a lot of friends who are in school or doing a middling job. They're like, this is my temporary thing until I get where I want. But you seem to be somewhere where you're pretty happy. You like your job. When you told me about it, it definitely seemed to suit you more than our career field when we were active duty.
Definitely.
Because Sam and I were in, the same career field. For people that don't know what that is, it's aircrew flight equipment, essentially. Essentially, aircrew flight equipment is we inspect, maintain, take care of all of the life-saving equipment on aircraft. It's a little cooler if you work on fighter aircraft. However, in my 8 years, Sam's, what was it, 4 or 6 years?
6
years.
Years.
6 years. We were at heavy bases, so it's a little less fun. It's basically just inspecting and then uploading and downloading thousands of pounds of equipment. Occasionally packing a parachute that's never going to get used.
Occasionally pack a parachute. I definitely did occasionally pack the chutes, but not. I think 99% of them were used in the 6 years, or were not used in the 6 years that I was there. I only heard of one, and that was because something went wrong.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And that's this one of the big things that I tell people is you find a career field. If you don't like it, you should probably move on from it, or if the military just happens to not be for you, to get out. Because I know a lot of what I was told when I was a younger airman was, what are you going to do? You're kind of discouraged. What are you going to do? Like, what else would you want to do? And, for me, I very quickly gravitated towards security forces, which people are like, oh, so you want like a dumb people job? And I was like, well, by the numbers, yes, it is a dumb person job, but and I'd say with anything, it's you're accessing different parts of your brain. For aircrew flight equipment, you did have to be very flexible, but day to day it was very monotonous. Once you kind of learned what you were doing, your day would kind of flow the same way. Unless something bad happened. And something bad happens, hey, we need you to change out this oxygen mask. Yeah. Oh, shucks.
Yeah, we got a red ball jet. It's going down.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, one of the straps broke on a 358. Oh, okay. I'll be out there in 5 minutes and this will be fixed.
Exactly. Like, can I just replace the piece? No. I want a whole new mask. Like, replace the piece.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to the cargo section and grab a mask from there.
Right. That's
I'm just kidding. NCOs that are out there watching this.
I'm not
kidding.
No NCO watching this is going to care. Also,
first of all, I separated. So deuces. I'm read between the lines on that one. Yeah.
I mean, so being in 6 years, how was that for you? Because I know I know there were some things you liked, some things you didn't like, but I kind of want to hear in your words, like, at what doing those 6 years meant for you.
Well, so basic training was honestly kind of rough for me. I went through with some guys that were like, man, that was a joke. For me, it was super stressful, not because, we were living like Marines or anything like that. It's certainly not as trying as what I know those guys have to go through, Marines, Army, and Navy. But for me, it was really stressful just because I felt every day I felt an increasing sense of responsibility to perform well. But the MTIs are not there to tell you that you're doing a good job. They are there to make you think that you're performing terribly so that you never get comfortable with success. At least that's what I took away from it after the fact, after years of therapy. But no, I felt really pressured to perform, and I was constantly getting yelled at, and I now know why that was such a big deal. But so it was a really rough 8 weeks for me, 8.5 or whatever it was. And there were definitely some emotional parts, because about halfway through, so I got a phone call. It was a 45-minute phone call, and it was because it was Christmas. And so they're like, you can have your phones back for 45 minutes. And so I got to make 3 phone calls. I called my girlfriend at the time. I called my mom, I think. And then I called my dad. And on that 15-minute section of that phone call, when I was talking to my dad, I just I broke down. Because I was feeling like I wasn't going to make it, that I was going to want to quit. And I wasn't doing well in PT because I thought I had prepared well enough going into that. And then doing PT every day, I was like, I'm terrible at this. I'm so out of shape. I'm fat, which back then fat meant 34-inch waistline for me. So, I was used to wearing 30 32s or 32 32s, depending. Because I wore skinny jeans and all that stuff going into that. And then I get there and I think I'm in shape. And then they just completely destroy me every single day. And I'm a red belt when we're running out there. And so everybody knows that I'm out of shape. And I'm running with these dumpy guys that I don't think are going to ever make it past yellow. Oh,
God.
And I'm just like, oh, my gosh, dude, I don't think I'm ready for this. Because this is the practice. This is to get you ready for what you might have to deal with in your career. And I was in was it the 331st? It was one of the battlefield airmen squadrons because there was the Rock and then us, Wolfpack, 331st.
So I was part of the Wolfpack. I legitimately don't remember the number of squadron.
I think it was 331st, but lead the way. Anyway, so I was watching these battlefield airmen like do extra stuff, like while we were waiting in line for chow, and they'd be doing pull-ups and stuff, and I was like, I can't even do one of those. And they're over there doing like 10 or 15. It was like, what? And they're getting ready to have to go drown a bunch. And I was just sitting there thinking, I don't think I'm going to make it through 6 years. Why did I let that stupid person at MEPS convince me that I would get paid more if I signed up for 6 years? Why did I listen to him? But I was doing it because I was in a relationship at the time, and I really wanted to have a better job to support her because I wanted to marry her. And we had been dating for a year or so at that point, and I was like, I don't want to be working as part of a merchandising team at a retail store and making like $10 an hour, if that. That's not any way to try and support a potential family down the road. And I was like, you know what, I need to join the military. So I pushed myself through that, and I had my heart-to-heart with my dad, and he kind of gave me some encouragement. And so I made it through the next 4 or 5 weeks after that. That was the same time that I had been made element leader. And so I had a bunch of other stuff thrown onto my shoulders, and I felt responsible for the 10 or 15 guys that were in my element. And I had the worst element, by the way. I don't know why, but all the tallest guys were the worst people.
Basic training was not made for tall people. I legitimately felt bad. We had our tallest guy eventually fell out because of knee problems.
Oh gosh!
From just having to march, so much, and tell people the taller you are, the worse athletics get on you. And he wasn't out of shape, or he was just real, like he was big, he was thickly built, not in the stomach though, but he's a big dude, and eventually his knee gave out, and I honestly don't know if he ever made it out of basic training because we all graduated, and he was at the medical flight. But yeah, basic training was not made for tall people.
Yeah, well, most of them had bad attitudes and didn't care about doing what our TI wanted them to do. So I was, on my face a lot, trying to explain why my element was misbehaving. And that just added to the sense of responsibility and the pressure and the stress. And so, yeah, I finally get out of there. So I had actually signed up. I originally wanted to be a sensor operator.
Right.
And I had been talking to my recruiter for like months about it at the time. And so I was just waiting in depth for almost a year, I think, at this point. And I was working at a call center for Verizon Wireless Tech Support. And so when I found out that
we lost him again. I'm not sure what's going on with our connection today, but we will get him back shortly. What I'll say is definitely when it comes to getting your career fields in the military, you can be led astray. Now, when we'll get Sam back and we'll see what happened with his story. I picked the career fields I was in. I originally picked air crew life support, and then eventually, there he is.
I'm back.
There you are. But I
happened.
Life support, not knowing it was going to be merging with survival equipment and making this new, fantastically terrible job called aircrew flight equipment. I'm not sure whose idea that was, because one was part of a maintenance squadron, the other part was part of op squadron, and then they are like, so we're just gonna get rid of you altogether, and you're gonna be an op support, job. Which realistically, op support, I think weather might be the one good job that's an op support. A lot of the op support jobs, not super great. I mean, everything's what you make it. But yeah,
I kept getting told that.
It's everything's what you make it. But it can definitely be made harder because I was at two separate bases, and those attitudes that made it hard to do the job were consistent throughout the career field as a whole, not just base to base. It was the career field as a whole. It seemed the leadership, the highest version of leadership in the enlisted side, definitely had a certain attitude about it. Just seemed not very conducive to feeling job satisfaction, or at least that's what I put up with. And so, like, it always sucks hearing people say, "Oh, like I was kind of led astray, or I felt pressured to go jump in and do this, and got stuck with this job, because it was like I picked this job, like I knew it was probably terrible." How I described it, because I didn't have a bad ASVAB score, I'll just go be king of the idiots. And then that's how I described it. I was like, I'll just I'll do 4 years, I'll be king of the idiots, it's fine. And then realized real quick that you have that mentality of I want to be king of the idiots, but you fuck around a little too much.
You become Duke of the Idiots.
What's that?
Then you become Duke of the Idiots.
Yeah, well, I
not even a king.
I almost became Mr. Wade again. So, what I realized then is, it was
that's when I met you. You're always so mad.
It's one of those things. I tell people I do a very good job. I feel like this podcast does a better job of showing a better side of my personality. I'm not saying that I don't occasionally get angry, that sometimes it's a little violent, but a lot of it's very carefully constructed. I don't know that I've shared this, but I grew up without a dad, so I kind of am very standoffish, just as I don't want to let people in. Now I've learned to make jokes about it, but realistically, it was just one of those things. I I use it as kind of a shield. And if you can get over the fact that, Kyle's an asshole, then you get to see a little bit more. And, me being an asshole doesn't always stop, which I feel like I've gotten better with the older I've gotten. But
I hope so.
hey, it's one of those. You're not the only guy that told me, like, man, I always thought you were angry. I heard from my deployed commander from the last deployment I had, and I had made a comment to somebody about, I was like, I know I didn't give off the hugging, friendly vibe, and my commander, who I didn't talk to a whole lot, but he definitely knew who I was. He's like, oh yeah, you definitely did not give off like the friendly vibe. Like, yeah, thanks, sir.
Don't get too close, I'll cut you.
I mean, hey, despite that, some people still tried to be real friendly, and at times it didn't work out. At times I was forced to be a little mean because some people didn't it's one of those things. I'm polite to people for, not for a reason. I'm polite to people that kind of, stick through me being a dick. But I also continue to be an asshole to people that I don't trust. Again, as a defense mechanism, if I'm being honest, I don't particularly want people that I don't trust around me. Kind of just push it a little too far, and I get told on occasion, they're like, hey, you need to scale, just bring it back a little bit. And, okay. That and being an NCO also has made stuff a little different, where I have to be a better example. I have to be a little kinder, little kid gloves with people a little more. So, but anyways, I want to get back to how you got sucked into AFE from being sensor operator, just because.
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, you got a 99 on your ASVAB, didn't you?
95.
Okay, yeah. I knew I was high. I know you and Murphy were both guys that was like, how the fuck did you guys, like, smart guys, get sucked in this job?
So yeah, definitely, like, my sponsors / supervisors when I first got there, I had Poche and Belil. And they started talking to me like I was a narc or something. And Poche was sure that I would just fly through rank. And so I got some confidence boosted when I first got there. Because I was like, yeah, I'm super smart. And I'm strong and fit, and I'm gonna just dominate.
I remember Sam.
Anyway, but yeah. So I initially was gonna come in as a sensor operator, and I worked at a call center for Verizon tech support, and that was where I was making most of my money, because I was making like $15 an hour doing that, and I was getting 40 hours a week plus whatever hours I wanted to work,
right?
Additionally, and so I was making good money doing that. And I told them that someday soon I would be leaving to join the military. And when I said that to my floor manager person, they were like, so we have to take that as your 2 weeks. And I was like, huh? and because I was like, in a few months or, at any time, they could basically call me and tell me that a sensor operator position is opened, and I could go to training from then on. And that I wouldn't be here forever. As soon as I said that I wasn't going to stay with the company, they had to take that as my 2 weeks and escort me out, because they had such an issue with turnover. And I guess that was like a security thing, quality assurance thing.
That's definitely had to have been illegal at that point. Like, until you give your 2 weeks, like,
It 100% was illegal. Especially in Texas, you can't do that to anybody that's joining the military. If they tell you that they're joining the military, you can't let them go as a result.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like places don't have to hire you if you tell. Like that was my mistake as a 17-year-old was telling people, oh yeah, like I'll be leaving in 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, to go to the military. And some places were just like, we're not going to hire somebody for 4 months, so they can get good at their job and dip. So, but so they don't have to hire you. But as far as firing you, when you tell them like, hey, at some point I will leave. Yeah.
I think they thought I was a skinhead too, because I had actually shaved my head before I left.
Oh gosh.
I did it. I was like, I don't want to, because I had long hair at the time too, and I was like, I don't want them to take it from me. I'm gonna remove it first. I'm not gonna let them play mind games with me. So I told them that, and they had to escort me out. It was super illegal for them to do that. I found out later. My dad had a friend that was serving on city council. He might even still be there. Who contacted me and was like, hey, this is super illegal. We can take it to court, and they will have to hire you back on and all this and that. And I had already by that time gone to my recruiter and been like, hey, I lost my job. I need to go now. Yeah. And so they're like, well, we can put you open mechanical and you can choose 7 jobs from that as your dream sheet. And I was like, I looked at open mechanical and I was like, I could do crew chief. That would work for me. And so,
yeah,
they got me. And so they wrote me in, and I shipped out that December 2012. The world was supposed to end, so I was like, what's the worst that could happen? But so I had to wait a month, and I told the guy from city council, I was like, I understand why we should pursue this on principle, but I don't need the job anymore. I'm leaving soon. I just gotta take care of some other stuff, and then I'm out anyway. Right. I went in open mechanical with a stinking 95. Stupid. Dude, I scored high in every section. Like,
if you get a 95, typically you did really well. I'm pretty sure I told you when I found out that the thing you were lacking was common sense. Because like there's no way a 95, and because I had you and Murphy at the same time, well, the fucking egghead dudes in our fucking unit on the same fucking shift were too smart to be there, except you made it a little more workable, whereas Murph still had, God bless that kid. I hope he did learn how to work with others better, but he was very much like, I'm better than this job. I'm more intelligent. And, I constantly have to remind him that, and like, remember, we're all in this stupid job. Like our ASVAB score doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I remember giving you shit specifically just because it was like, I actually like him. Like, I feel bad for you that this intelligent guy is in this. Again, you have to be moderately intelligent for most jobs in the Air Force. Moderately. And I say most. But the kind of intelligence that you brought, I was like, I just want to punch him in the face because he's in this stupid fucking job.
Yeah.
Like I would just look at you and get mad. I'm being honest. Why is this kid? And it's funny because I'd call you a kid, and then I realized you were older than me, and I was like, oh God.
Yeah, lots of mistakes made that year of my life. Lots of mistakes. My girlfriend actually dumped me in tech school.
Yeah.
So
hey, me too, man.
That was sweet. So lots of mistakes made in that year of my life. And I definitely, as soon as I got there and I kind of had my toes in the pool, I was like, oh no, I need to play the dumb card a lot more than I am right now. And so I started doing that pretty quick. Mostly because that's how I learn better, is if you talk to me like I'm stupid. Because, and I know now why I process information that way. But I need to not only see it done, try to do it myself and hear it, but I need it explained in simple terms.
And that's the thing is anybody that's taken probably any type of leadership course, let alone a military leadership course, has learned like you get guys that learn different ways. Honestly, if I could have done anything differently, it would have been to push for going to a leadership class before I did, because after that, everything clicked a little more. The way that you would learn was not the way that, say, guys like McGregor or Quintana or Swear. That
Sweardo.
That fucking kid.
Sweardo.
But it was one of those things. I had learned that because in you, like I had learned that you process stuff differently. Where I was like, I wish I wasn't such an asshole to some of these guys who didn't just like immediately, because that's what it was. If I would show you, tell you, do all that stuff, and some guys wouldn't do it the way that I taught it, I just get frustrated. And then I again went to that leadership course and realized like, oh, all these people learn differently.
People are different.
Yeah, people are different. It's a crazy concept. If yelling at them doesn't work, then maybe try something else. Because as most people knew, I was real good at yelling.
Or not talking for 8 hours straight.
Or 12 hours straight.
Load the truck.
Yep. I'm not even gonna I mean, to be fair, I would come in 45 minutes early, schedule everything, and that's honestly all I'd say to you guys is I hand stuff to you, say load the truck, and that was it.
Once I got used to that, it was the most beautiful thing because I knew exactly what was expected of me, and I liked being treated like a grunt. At least at that stage in my career, I was like, yes, something simple where I don't have to try and guess what the person is thinking or what I'm supposed to be doing. I literally have a piece of paper. It's like, do A, B, C, D, E, and then you're done. It's like, then we're going to go do it.
And again, a part of that's what I regret about not explaining that kind of stuff, because I would have, like, because, the thing that would happen was I would have two of you, you'd learn the job, get good at it, and then somebody would be like, well, they're good at their job, so I'm going to steal them. And they give me two new people, and then I'd have to explain it and after a while, it's just like, I'm going to hand this to you, and I'm going to say very little. And realistically, what I should have been doing is like, okay, I'm going to treat this with kid gloves, explain this exactly how I had you do it, had all these people do it, because at the end of the day, like we really just wanted to, get the work done and hang out, because as anybody that worked flight line nights at Joint Base Lewis McChord knows, there's not 12 hours worth of work, and you could probably invent work if you really wanted to, but we didn't. What was necessary and slightly more, and that was, still not enough to fill 12 hours.
Yeah, you were done by 02 at the latest. Unless it was a super terrible night, which did happen on occasion, but
yeah, well,
most of the time,
But that's why we did it. But like you said, at a certain point, like you got used to it, and I was like, man, I kind of wish I feel bad because it feels like I conditioned you all to abuse a little bit. Like, it's like, hey, he's either going to yell at us or not talk. Just kind of grunt in our direction. Like
that's how Stork and I got to know each other, though, because there was no getting to know Wait. There was no getting to know Wait at all.
I mean,
right. I mean, how's it going, man?
It's one of the things. I really wish I had had done a little bit better job with you guys.
Well, I actually ended up going on to run. There was a point in time where I was going to take over as senior airman all of flight line. Like it was going to become my thing. And I ran it the same way that you did. It's like I just told people, it's like we need this, 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 and this. Find good dates for these. Load the truck. We'll get it done. We'll be back here by like 2 or 3 at the latest. And then hang out and watch YouTube till 6. And then straighten everything up for
straighten up everything up for
all the honors.
6:45 when people start rolling in for their shift at 7 and maybe pull out a TO to make it look good.
Yeah. Toad's been doing inspections like this the whole time.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have every one of these inspections memorized. So I because I went open mechanical, I ended up in AFE. That was actually really hard for me because I wanted so bad to be a F-16 crew chief because that was at the top of my list. It went like F-16, F-15, A-10, then like metals tech, avionics, all this, smart guy stuff. And then I didn't get any of it. I got aircrew flight equipment, and I read the description and I cried. I was like, oh my God, this is going to suck. And then I saw the dream sheet for bases that I could get. And I was like, they can go anywhere. It doesn't matter. I can go to any base. And I was like, Aviano, Lakenheath, Mildenhall, Massawa. I was trying to go anywhere overseas. And then then I got to tech school, found out my job was way easy, and got my assignment, and they were like Washington, and I was like, oh no, let's Google Tacoma, meth capital of the world. They shot cops here. What? I was upset yet again because I wasn't going overseas and I was going to this seemingly terrible place. And being from Texas, I was like, and politically, I'm going to be an outlier, I think. And so I was comforted by the fact that I was in the military, and I felt like maybe I would get along more with the people that I worked with, rather than civilians at that point, which turned out not to be the case. But yeah, my opinion of the job definitely changed after the first 2 or 3 years. And I think that was mostly because all of the cool people that I met when I was super excited about the job, when I was real gung-ho about being in the military and everything, bleeding blue and all that, all those people had left. And so my support network, my friends and all that stuff had changed completely. And I was supposed to be the guy training and essentially raising these young airmen now, because I was in that role. I didn't know what to do. And so stuff started going kind of downhill for me. I got passed up for staff. They had just changed the EPR system and made it so that only like one person could get a 5, only a 2 or 3 could get a 4.
And then every base, I mean, realistically, what the EPR system should be, maybe not with number limits, but I mean, everybody's not a 5. A lot. I hate saying it, most people are 3s. Like most people are come and do their job. Nothing wrong with it. But putting caps on like one person, like
going from 100% and then or like 90% of the people are getting 5s, and then you have 10% getting 4s or 3s or less. And then basically flipping that on its head and saying 1% get 5s, and then 99% get 4s and below. Well, 3s and below, because then you have just the couple people they get 4s. So I got a 3 that year. It's my first test for staff. And that was the same year that I had basically run the shop for 2 weeks while all the sergeants had decided that they were all going to take leave at the same time. And they all somehow magically got approved for 2 weeks. And it was like me and the flight chief. And so I was in charge of that whole side of the shop at 11:59 for 2 weeks. And I was like, dude, I'm a shoe-in for that 5 spot this year because I'm an NCO for 2 weeks. Like, I have to do their job for 2 weeks and not burn down the building. But, you know, and I felt like I did a pretty good job because I was running NVGs and C-cells at the same time on my own, and then also trying to keep up with all of the other sections. But I trusted them to kind of do it on their own, and I would just check in and be like, hey, is there anything you need from me, or like, how are we doing on workload and stuff like that? And everything went fine for 2 weeks. I did the deep freeze thing that year, and I was like, dude, I just got these solid bullets just stacking up. I was on the CTK program, and I was doing all that stuff, and I didn't get even a 4 that year. So I missed out on like 20 points between 3 and 4. And I missed staff. I missed the cutoff for staff by exactly 20.0 points. I was like, meh, I don't think anything matters anymore. Because I knew who had gotten the 4s and 5s that year.
I mean, everybody talks about it, so it's not like a mystery.
Yeah. And so I was like, I was super discouraged. I realized that the military was not the meritocracy that I once thought it was.
I mean, it can be. It comes in different ways. What I'll tell you is a little bit of the same happened with me. It worked as a meritocracy in the way that, like you, when I first got to Joint Base Lewis McChord, I was there for a week. And I had come from a base that was super NCO, like airmen were airmen, NCOs were NCOs. I had, I think, 2 additional duties by way of volunteering for them. But like that was uncommon. Like airmen did airman work, which was the work. It was not the paperwork. It was not scheduling. It wasn't anything like that. To going to Joint Base Lewis McChord, where they're like, hey, you're in charge for a month of the O2 section. And I was like, I told them, I was like, first of all, I was like, I've never been a part of an O2 section. Like, I had done buildups for helmets and oxygen masks and everything. Mm-hmm. I was like, but I'd never been like a full-time part of it. Like, I'd gone to help for a day or two here or there. And they're like, oh no, you're in charge for a month. I was like, okay, cool. What happened? They're like, well, the tech sergeant that's in charge is taking a month worth of leave. Okay, cool. Whatever. Did what I was supposed to do, kicked ass. And our civilian, Mr. Dell, was the one that he put me in for the deep freeze mission.
Nice.
And that's the way that they saw it was, well, we gave him this. So when it comes time for EPRs, because I initially had a contentious relationship with my supervisor, we ended up squashing it because we were both adults. And I think some things happened in her life that changed her attitude towards people. But it was when EPR time came around, I got a 4, which was strange because everything on my EPR was rated to the right. Everything. The only thing that wasn't all the way to the right was the number system itself, and I got a 4. And then I missed it by like a few. Like I think I missed it by like 3. I think like from 4 to 5, I think you get like a decent amount of points to where.
Yeah.
Like, So it was like, oh, like I only missed it by 3, and if I had a 5, I would have had those points. Looking back on it now, I'm a little happier. I probably would still be stuck in aircrew flight equipment. I love my career field now.
Yeah.
I do like, and it's the same thing. Like, it can be a meritocracy, and there's times that you kind of need to put on your ass kissing boots, and
Yeah, I never did. I don't think I actually owned a pair of those.
And it's the thing. It's sometimes that just, I mean, at Lewis McCord, everybody knew I was working there that last year with no potential to promote, to stay active duty. But I worked that entire last year, and so at that point, like there was no ass kissing at all. It was just, I want to take care of my people. Like I remember I went on leave once, came back, and they had tried to decertify one of my airmen, which I was like, no.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, and I was on leave. I'm like, how are you going to do something like while I'm gone? But then I got to meet guys like Quintana and McGregor and, some other people. I got to have those nice last, 12 months with people that, I liked being around. I liked being around you, Poche. I liked being around fucking Dean, as long as he was there, because him and I got off of active duty the same exact day. Helmet, like we had a very good group of people there, generally from junior NCOs down. And then, like I said, we had some civilians that made it palatable, but if you didn't work for those civilians, you worked for the higher enlisted, and it was a little rougher.
Yeah. Yeah, so stuff just kind of went downhill for me from there because I didn't care anymore. I was super discouraged by that event. And then as I progressively got more discouraged, I did other things that got me in trouble, which then discouraged me further. And I developed a bit of a mouth. And I did not, like I mentioned earlier, own a pair of ass kissing boots.
That'll hurt you sometimes.
Yeah, I had the opposite. Mine were biting boots. Because I did often fight and argue. Not fight. I'm not Logan Paul. I did argue quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it was mostly because I would look at these people that were changing things up, not because it was a broken system or because it needed some tuning up, but because they were looking for bullets. And I stopped caring about the EPR system at all. And I would see them doing this stuff, and I'm like, that's incredibly stupid. You're just putting more work on me and airmen below me, for your career, and I'm not about that. I will call you out, and you know what? I may not have the support of anybody else in the flight, but I'm going to call you out for being a douche, and I'm going to let you know that I know what's up, and I'm not afraid of what you're going to do to me. That did get me in trouble a lot. I think I ended up with a demotion or two.
Really?
Yeah. I think I left a Skeeter winger. Yeah. E4 Mafia for life. Yeah, because man, there was a lot that happened in like the last 3 years.
I bet. I mean, and that's I think the important part to take from it was you lost a lot of infrastructure because at that time, like I said, like I had left. I'm pretty sure in that time Poche had left. A lot of those guys who were very people first left. I'm not sure if all of them left after I did, but we had a lot of good people. You know, Michael's left before I did.
Yeah.
You know, and he had a way of bringing the best out of people. You know, every once in a while, you know, I have a video pop up on my timeline of him, Sparta kicking.
Katana, yeah.
That's what I mean. We had a group of people who would do kind of silly shit. But like when it came to taking care of our people, like that was the important thing. And I realized you probably lost most, if not all, of those people after I left.
Yeah. We definitely gained some cool people after you guys had been gone, but it was nothing like the Breakfast Club that was there initially. Yeah, because I left there only feeling like I could trust maybe 5 or 6 people total. I had some stuff happen where I ended up at 5 North, the psych ward over at Madigan on the Army side. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it at length because
you don't have, and that's the thing, you can share as much or as little as you want to here, man.
But on deployment in 2014, I had a panic attack, and I started seeing behavioral health out at the Deed while I was out there, and then continued to see them for the next 3 or 4 years off and on. But I think it was my second to last year, so it would have been like 2016, 2017 time frame ish.
Right.
I had some stuff go down, and the chain had taken notice of my behaviors and deemed it necessary to talk to our squadron commander, who then suggested that I do a commander-directed eval, which I didn't understand what that meant. But I was in a super bad place in my life at that point anyway, so I was really just kind of like, yeah, if you guys want to help me, then I'll go along with it. It was explained to me, sort of, in the office with the commander. And he, was like, we're going to do this and we're going to take you to behavioral health because whatever is going on with who you're seeing now isn't working. Like something else is up. And I was like, okay. That makes sense because I was, again, in a bad spot, and I was aware that I was in a bad spot. My understanding was that I was going to see the people, my counselors that I had been seeing, but with someone present. I was basically signing their ability to sit down with me and my counselors to try and figure out what's going on. To get everybody on the same page. That was my understanding of what was going to happen. That did not happen. I was I was not without my supervisor by my side since like 8:15 that morning when they told me, hey, be in my office 8:15 in uniform. You're not in trouble. When has that ever been true, by the way? Be in uniform in my office. You're not in trouble. Yeah, no.
Yeah, this is okay. Well, like, are you giving me a cookie? Because
yeah, because it sounds like I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
No, that's please don't kill yourself before you get here.
Right.
And so, I had somebody by my side throughout the whole thing. They took me to the Army side, a system that had never even heard of me, and had me interview with one of their nurses. And they asked me probably 10, 15, 20 times if I had planned to hurt myself, if I was feeling suicidal, if I had suicidal ideation, if I was planning on hurting other people, like just over and over and over. And I started to get frustrated with the nurse that was constantly asking me. I was like,
yeah.
Are you deaf? I have already answered this question like 10 times. I have no intentions of hurting myself or anyone else. Can I please go home? And it was just embarrassing to be there in that situation, to have most of the chain of command present in the hospital while I was being berated with these ridiculous questions. And then next thing I know, I'm in I'm in a gown for 72 hours wearing smiley face socks on suicide watch in the psych ward with a bunch of people that, you know, had more reason to be there, but I also felt for them too, because that situation was just awful. It shed a whole new light on how at least McCord handled mental health on that side.
Well, the military's incredibly reactionary, and if that time frame's matching up with when I think it does, we lost a friend around that time.
Yeah. We had actually lost 2 people by that time. But one might have been an accident. The other one, I know which one you're talking about. And yeah. I understand why people do feel that way. I don't think that has ever been a good reason to imprison people. Ever.
Right. One, and that's the thing. It's like that's why I say the military is very reactionary in that. I don't know, because I don't talk to any of those people in those leadership areas. But I know some people probably felt at least a little responsible. And honestly, they shouldn't, because, you know, what he went through at that time was removed from the military. It was just a struggle that he had gone through, and, you know, he made the choice that he did, which to this day, you know, every once in a while, you know, somebody posts something about him. And yeah, I think about that same goofy ass motherfucker talking about doing poultry science. Like it's the one thing that, you know, that, and, you know, how natural he felt about talking, how often he would, you know, occasionally shit himself.
Dude, oh my gosh. So there is a moment in time that has been burned into my brain because of him. And I will never be able to let this go, ever. But after we had an airman's meeting where Sergeant Bailey was conducting the meeting, and that dirty bastard ratted me out and my ASVAB score. And so everybody knew that I had a 95.
Yep.
And everybody thought I was a narc or like a plant from
I remember all this shit. because for the longest time you were like, everyone's like, oh, he's a narc.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, hello, fellow stupid people, you know, and then it's like,
yeah, pretty much.
It turns out, but just playing dumb the whole time, and I'm sure it did seem like I was putting on an act just so that I could fit in.
We all knew you weren't, like, that was the thing. It's like, we all know this kid's not dumb.
And yeah, I'm still trying to maintain that I'm dumb.
Yeah.
It's definitely, like, it definitely seems
you were definitely a poor actor in that capacity. It's like, there's no, like, he's not, that's why you got called a narc, is because we're like, this dude's, yeah, you're the old guy that shows up. It's like, hi, fellow high schoolers. It's like, no. Yeah. No, like,
I am the Steve Buscemi of AFE.
Yeah, like,
hello, fellow youngsters.
There.
Yeah. Well, and I, when I would walk into the O2 room and somebody would ask me, "Hey, what's the definition of this?" and then I would be like, "Oh, that means yada 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 yada," and then somebody would have the dictionary pulled up and be like, "It was like verbatim the same thing," and it's like, "Oh,
yeah."
I mean, oh, so. But there is a moment. So after this has happened, you know, the cat's out of the bag, and I don't get to play the dumb card anymore.
Nope.
I think there was an air of condescension about me because I definitely got approached a couple times about it. But there was one time where we were riding in a car somewhere. I think we were going to lunch or doing a breakfast thing or something.
Right.
But he's like, "You think you're pretty smart, huh?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, I guess." And he's like, "So what's an Oxford comma?" I didn't know there was a name for it at the time. And I was like, "I don't know. this doesn't sound like anything I'm familiar with. It sounds literary in context, but I don't know. And he was like, it's the comma after an and that isn't necessary. Or before an and that isn't necessary. It's an unnecessary comma that's been placed in there. It's still technically okay, but not necessary.
Not necessary.
And I was like, cool. And he's like, guess you're not that smart, huh? And then boom, forever scorched into my brain, and I will never forget that moment. And it irks me because I'm like, it was such a dumb thing to know. And I was like, oh, that's what that's called. And dude, I think back to that moment so often. I will never forget the definition of Oxford comma, though. I tell you that. So thanks for that, dude.
But back to your stuff. I mean, it is one of those. I don't know if that was what it was. It just, to me, that's what it comes off as, is having had what happen. Then puts you in a spot where it's like, okay, like we're either legitimately afraid or we don't know what to do, so we're just going to do this to cover our ass.
Yeah,
and it doesn't make it okay. Again, like false, wrongful, however you want to call it, imprisonment. Like that's kind of what it comes off as. Like, oh, you are leading all these people to believe that I'm so not okay that I'm going to do something that, like, I've told you a bunch of times I'm not going to do, but you frustrated me to where like, but your attitude.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, quite literally a catch-22. They interview you to make sure you're not crazy, but they drive you crazy with the interview.
Yep.
And so I mean, I now understand that book so fully and completely. It is crazy. Oh no. Yeah, so I don't want them to not intervene in situations like that, because not only did we have personal stories, and we had just lost somebody else due to drug overdose. They said it was a medical thing, but we found out through the grapevine, no secrets kept in AFE, not for long.
Right.
But we had just lost another guy. And so I understand, because not only do we have those personal stories, but we also hear every year all these horror stories about signs that were there, and we get trained every year on it and stuff. And
right.
So when you're trained to be that hyper vigilant and just constantly reminded that this darkness is out there, you're immediately going to flick on that flashlight and do exactly what you're supposed to do, to intervene and try to stop that from happening. Because I understand that it's a negative thing, and I have a very different position on suicide and things like that.
Right.
But I understand why other people feel that way. What I don't like is that the intervention currently is just step in and stop them from being able to do anything. Remove their autonomy. They're clearly not mature enough to handle being alone.
Right.
And that's the first response. Like, for me, I was doing some things that could be misconstrued as signs of suicidal ideation, but I didn't give anybody my D&D source books, so I clearly planned on keeping those.
Right.
Guys, if you're watching. Yeah, so for that to be what I consider an extreme response to my essentially first offense on that, on that particular topic, like, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. And being in there with so many other people that were feeling pain from being in there,
right?
Just seeing that, and I knew what I was struggling with, and I knew that being separated from my life was not helping. Yeah, And so after the 72 hours, I had to have a meeting with the chain of command, and they had to kind of approve my leave of the hospital. I was not excited. I was afraid they weren't going to show up, that they were just going to not care whether I stayed in there or not.
Right.
Because I didn't trust any of them anymore. And I told them that in the meeting. I was like, I want you guys to know that I feel betrayed and I don't trust any of you. I feel terrible that you put my supervisor, who is a good friend of mine, in this position because she feels terrible about it. She feels like she's laid a trap for me. And I just want you guys to know that I think you're all pieces of crap, and I'm not going to listen to you from here on out.
Yep.
Because this was a slap in the face. You guys removed me. You ripped me from my life without my permission. Tricked me into signing a document that I clearly did not understand. And I got stuck in here with a bunch of crazy people for 72 hours. And they had me sign some other documents that were conditions that I had to meet. But for the next, well, I guess really for a vast majority of the remainder of my service, I was treated like I was a monster because of the stuff that I got wrapped up in that caused them to do that.
Yeah.
Because while I was in there for 3 days, guess what everybody was doing back at the shop? Where the heck is Starkey? Why haven't we heard from Starkey? What did he do? You know, and then people find out. And
talking and,
other people that might have been involved, were saying things and giving their sides of the story. And I was not there to defend myself. I was fortunate to come out of that still having some friends, but I definitely noticed a different attitude around me. It was honestly like a weird creature had walked into the room every time I did. And so
I'm not trying to excuse anybody. It's just, it's kind of that toxic culture that people talk about with some parts of the military is people talk, and if you're not there to defend yourself, and if nobody else is there, for you, telling people to shut the fuck up, that's not what's going on. You kind of get labeled, and like what's said is the word. It's not like a lot of people aren't going to go out of their way to be like, hey man, like what happened? Like tell me what's going on so I can better understand. They're like, no, this is what I got told, and like this must be what it is.
Truth now. Yeah, and I understood that, but I never felt worse about my situation than when I got out of there, and felt even more isolated than I did when I was in. I felt so cut off from everybody. I ended up going back to behavioral health with my normal counselors, psychiatrists, and stuff, and talking to them about the event, and they were like, they did what? As if it was like a huge HIPAA violation and like massive. They didn't even talk. It turns out that they didn't talk to my counselors about it. They just did it. And so I just developed even more animosity toward the higher ups at that point, which is what caused me to rebel against them even more in my last couple of years there. Because they treated me like trash. And so I was like, well, screw you then. I'm just going to do my job. You're not going to have anything on me job wise. PT, they still had PT on me, but that's because pizza was my only friend. Papa John's.
No, I mean it is upsetting to hear, because like I would like to believe if I was there, I would have been able to be a better friend to you and help you out, and at worst fucking be there, because that's, as a supervisor, I mean, as a friend, like that's your responsibility. Is like, hey, it's not just for when everything's fucking fireworks and everything's going great. It's when shit hits the fan.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I definitely did not have an overall positive experience with the military. I came in with a completely different mindset, because I was raised, my dad, being a fighter pilot for nearly 30 years. And, I saw a different military going in. And part of that was still there when I first started, first couple of years. But slowly, that stuff got chipped away, and I realized that it was just a really thick paint coat or coat of paint. And and so, I pursued a med board. Oh man, separation story is the best. The cherry on top of this huge sundae of ugh. But so because of all this, I had been so back in 2014 when I had my panic attack, I had been diagnosed with major depressive and general anxiety disorder. Okay. Initially, they were talking PTSD, but I was like, I've never experienced anything traumatic in my life, not really. Even as a kid, and so they were like, "Yeah, we're just going to scrap that then," because there's probably nothing attached to that. But they did diagnose me with general anxiety disorder and major depressive,
right?
Which they had come to the conclusion because of suicidal ideation and because of panic attacks and stuff like that, and inability to control my emotions, and just how volatile they could get and all that.
Right.
And I agreed with that, and so for 4 years I was off and on, in and out of there. So as a result of this visit to 5 North, I decided to pursue a med board because I wanted to get medically discharged from the military. And I was like, I have anxiety. I've had panic attacks before in deployed locations. According to my medical records, I've had brushes with suicide and all of this other dark crap that I've been pegged with. I was like, can we pursue a med board? And they were like, yeah, by next summer, we should know what we're going to do. So that date keeps getting pushed back and back and back. And my date of separation is coming up on December 10th of 2018. And it's like the summer of 2018 at this time. And they're like, it's probably going to be next summer. So we're going to have to get you an extension. So we got to push that through approval process and then continue the med board from there. I didn't know it at the time, but when I got all my separation paperwork to do TAPS and all that stuff, I could not do any out processing whatsoever. I could take TAPS classes. That was okay. Because I think you have 18 months. There's an 18-month window that you can do that and it still be valid, which whatever. But, so I took my TAPS classes, at work. I had half of the NCOs telling me that I wasn't really allowed to touch any equipment because I was getting ready to separate and do all this med board stuff. And so they were kind of they had already been super iffy about me being at work in general, because of I'm a psycho stuff. But after I was getting closer and closer to the date, I was getting told, I got shoved over to 758 being told that I was literally not allowed to touch any equipment that no one else was also working on. I couldn't do anything by myself. I had to be supervised on everything. I think they thought that I was going to try to sink 46 people off of a C-17 or something. Just put a nice big hole in the raft, and then just when they climb in, it's going to pop, and then I'm going to kill 50 people. I'm going out with a bang, bro.
You're going to put a hole in the rafts that they never use.
Yeah. And I get wanting to protect the equipment, but telling me that as a And this came after a couple of demotions too, so they were kind of like, "Oh, you stupid again." I was like, "Really? I didn't unlearn everything that I learned as a senior airman that took charge of your jobs while you were all gone." But whatever. I was like, cool. They put me in floats, which is where I was with my supervisor. Again, good friend. And she let me work on stuff. And floats was a great section for me because everybody worked on everything as a team anyway, so it didn't really matter. I was passing all my IPIs and everything. I wasn't bad at my job all of a sudden.
Right.
And, we were knocking work out and everything. Well, so I'm there until I separate. And it gets to 7 days before my separation, and I still haven't heard from behavioral health that I've been extended. I'm still waiting on word. I've been talking to medical and admin and all this stuff, and I'm just like, hey, can we get this process expedited? My separation is coming up. I need to get extended for 6 months to a year so that I can finish out this med board. Well, 7 days, the Monday before I separate, they call me over to medical, the clinic there at McCord. And I was like, finally, they're going to tell me some information about my med board. I go into the office and they're like, yeah, we just need to talk to you in here. We got some paperwork for you to sign. And so I was like, cool. And they're like, hey, your med board got cleared. We're no longer pursuing it. We're not going to go ahead with the extension. You've been cleared to separate as normal on 10 December. Which was the next Monday. And you'll be able to separate as you'll get honorable, like general discharge, all this stuff. So there's not going to be anything negative, nothing super positive, but you're going out fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's 7 days away. And they're like, that's why we're telling you now. And I was like, what? And then come to find out, they knew like 2 weeks prior to that. And didn't tell me then. And so I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I had to do, most of that stuff says 45, no less than 45 days out from your data separation. Mm-hmm. Start this stuff at the very least, or finish it. Some of it was like, you have to have this finished by a month and a half out. I had 7 days to do all of that.
Yep.
But with the help of the shirt, I was constantly in the CSS talking to the shirt and the commander, just like, help me, please. Get some of this stuff expedited, and we got it all done. I have no idea if I actually have all my paperwork that I need. I know I have my medical records, which was super important to me because I was going to go through the VA for support since the Air Force was like, nah, get out of here. I've miraculously got out of there. Now, to make matters worse, I was not prepared for this at all, obviously, because I had 7 days of warning. I had no money to move. I still hadn't even talked to my apartment about leaving because I was essentially going to be breaking the lease. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, I called him that Monday, right after I found out. I was like, hey, this is super short notice, but they're basically shooing me out the door. I'm separating next Monday. And I have nothing packed. I have no money. And I have to get all this stuff done in a week. And I need your help. And so thankfully he was able to talk to his boss and he let him go. And he came up there and was able to help me, got me packed up. And I was out of there by that next weekend. Driving home, 3-day drive, like 24 hours out. So I'm planning on crashing at my parents' place for a little bit till I can get some money together, because I just spent $3,000 or so that I didn't have to move myself back home.
Yeah.
So, I'm telling them, or I'm expecting to crash there for like maybe a month at the most.
Yeah.
And my dad is on the phone with them, and I ask him how that stuff is going to work. And I was like, am I just going to be in my room, or like, do we have to make space for me or what? He tells me if my family doesn't want me around, that my mother, my sister, and my brother have all decided that they don't want me living with them. They don't want to see me or be near me in that kind of capacity.
I mean, were you given the reason for it? I mean, is that something you want to do?
So I was given a reason. There was one event in particular in our past where I had gotten in a fight with my sister about some stuff.
Right.
And that was just the last straw for them, because they talked about a bunch of other stuff. And they had decided that they just didn't want me around. And now, 2 years later, things are different. But at the time, like, if you can imagine, after the time I had in the military, after being booted out the door, essentially, and then to have your family say that. I lived in a hotel for like a week, just racking up them bills, I finally got into an apartment, and it was only because my dad could sign for it, but it could be like I signed for it because we share the same name.
Yeah.
And our signatures look almost identical. So I could fudge my way into an apartment. Because otherwise I would have been boned, because they all wanted job history. And I was like, I just got out of the military. I don't have a job. I literally had a job a week ago in the military, separated, and you guys want job history other than that? I don't have it.
Right.
And so most places wouldn't let me in until my dad signed for one. So I was there for a little while. But yeah, the next year of my life was just like, it was weird, because I didn't want to talk to my family except for my dad, and he would come over every week and we would watch movies. We started with an Arnold Schwarzenegger like marathon in any movie. And we would get Chinese food and watch an Arnie movie. And we watched, I think, all of them. But it started a tradition, and so I was just spending every Sunday with my dad doing that. I grew closer to my dad as a result. Grew more distant to my family because of what was going on there. And like I said, we've patched things up since then, and so it's good now. There's still a little shred of the splinter left, but it's for the most part healed over. But yeah, I was fortunate. So the VA was able to take care of me for most of that stuff. I think about 6 months into that is when I found out something that really started the whole turnaround, like me being happy again.
What was that?
So I had actually switched to a new doctor because I had been seeing a different counselor for a while, but she got a different job. And so I got moved to a new doctor, and they're like, are you going to be okay with that? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. After a couple sessions of talking to her, I was telling a story about my buddy and his oldest son, or his second oldest son, who is autistic. So I was telling her a story about that, and she stopped me a couple minutes into my story, and she was like, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I had no idea how to bring it up, but you are 100% on the spectrum. And I was like, excuse me? Because it was a shock. I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, no, without a doubt, 100% on the spectrum. And so they had recently made a transition from DSM-4 to DSM-5, where most of these mental disorders, I don't really know how else to call them, but had been placed onto the autism spectrum for classification purposes, and because, you know, people can experience or exhibit traits from all places over the spectrum, and it just makes it easier to label, identify, and treat if it's on a spectrum, rather than being like, oh, well, this guy has Asperger's and this guy has this going on, and so we need to give him these drugs, and this guy needs to take these drugs and see me this often, because it might not be the case
right.
Each person. And so, yeah, she told me that I was on the spectrum, high functioning, obviously. And then essentially it was Asperger's. That I have Asperger's. And I actually remember having a conversation with Sergeant Allsberger.
Sergeant Asperger's?
I called him Sergeant Asperger's. And I remember specifically being like, you know, wouldn't it be ironic if I turned out to have Asperger's just because I said that to you? And lo and behold, 5 years later, I'm getting diagnosed. But when she told me that, and after we talked about it for a bit, tons of stuff from my childhood, from growing up, from relationships, from my time in the military, all the anxiety and depression stuff, just suddenly I was like, holy cow. I completely understand. That makes so much sense. All of it just clicked. Yeah. And I finally understood what I was struggling with. There was a moment when I got dumped by my first girlfriend, and I was so jacked up by it. I was on the floor crying most nights. And I remember one time I was doing it, I was just super upset, and I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I think there's something wrong with me. And I look back on that moment, and I was like, that was the one time that I really recognized that I was different. And that things just affected me differently.
Right.
And so, yeah, when it comes to me processing information and learning and attaching with people and dealing with emotions and all of that stuff, it just all made sense. And ever since then, I have been so much happier. I think part of that was getting away from the military and getting out of a job that didn't really suit me all that well.
Yeah.
But a lot of it came from that epiphany about who I am. And knowing who I am has just been so much more comfortable. And being able to talk about it and knowing exactly what I'm dealing with, why I'm dealing with it, has just made things way easier to deal with. And to handle and process.
And it's good to hear, man, because like it's coming from a place where like I've also had to go and speak to people and be like, hey, like I have some issues, and like it does bring clarity, and nobody likes being told like there's something wrong with you. Yeah. Matter of fact, the few people I know in my life that have talked to somebody professionally and been told there's something, like none of them react well to it. And I'm like, well, it's not an easy thing to hear, especially because people do treat you differently. But at the same time, the way that you feel a little bit more freedom, because you're like, hey, like like you said, all of those things that came rushing back to you, you're like, oh my God, this all makes sense. To see, like I kind of wish that I don't know that like it would have changed your experience with the military. Probably not, if we're being honest. You're one of those cases where I think you did the right thing by being like, I did my contract. It's probably just isn't for like, I'm not going to be happy long term here. And you got out. Which brings what are you up to now, man? Like what are you doing now that you're not in the military?
So when I first got out, I didn't work because I did have some money. I forgot that I had a Roth IRA, so I ended up pulling out of that. Right. So I had a little bit to play with for a while, and I was like, I could probably go without like 6 months without a job, and I'd be fine. But I did want a job still because I still wanted to fill my days with something other than watching movies or playing games or other lonely activities. But I got a job with GameStop, so my old stomping grounds, same store and everything. And I was working for some really great people. I was feeling really good about that. And then GameStop lost a bunch of money, and they had to start closing stores left and right. And my store was on the chopping block. Fortunately, they told me like literally 5 hours after I found out that somebody was looking to hire me on base. And they were like, hey, we're having to close this store. We can probably bring you on at another store, same position, maybe even a pay bump, depending on the location and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I actually got a job offer on base, and it's like twice the pay, and it's full time, and I can't really pass that up. And they were like, perfect, that works for us too. And so I closed that store down, which was sad because I spent a lot of my formative years either in there or working there, and then to come back and work there for almost another year. And as an adult, it was just, I felt home again. And they were like, we're closing it. And I was like, no, so many good things happened to me here. You know what's crazy? So there was a bid for the lot, and GameStop couldn't pay the bid, or didn't want to, rather. They were like, it'd just be cheaper to close it. And we wouldn't make much money at this location. The VA beat them out on the bid. And I now go there for all of my appointments. And
you still kind of get that place.
Yeah. And now I have to tell them, it's like, you guys took my job from me. You're supposed to help veterans get jobs, not take them away. But anyway, so I ended up working on base. I was working at FMO, which was the furnishing warehouse. So I furnished all the dorms and stuff. And I got in pretty decent shape doing that because it's a lot of lifting refrigerators and ovens and beds up and downstairs constantly, couches, all that stuff. And I felt really good about doing like some manual labor because I didn't have to use my brain. In fact, the few times that I was asked to use my brain, it just frustrated me because everybody else was also trying to use their brain, but I knew my brain was better. And and it drove me nuts. So after a while, that job actually got kind of political. Dude got the boss position after our previous boss had left, and then hired one of his friends, and then favoritism and all this crap started pouring in. And it just made a terrible that I had been playing D&D with like throughout my military career online, was like, hey, they're looking for gamers to come over here and work on the Spark Cell. And I was like, what's the Spark Cell? And he's like, it's the VR simulation training program. They're trying to innovate training and add to it, to make better pilots faster. And I was like, heck yes, I want to mess with VR. I don't care what capacity. If you want me just to clean the lenses, like, yes, because I will find a reason to be in that seat and testing it. And he's like, yeah, talk to so-and-so and you can get hired on there. And the fact that they said they were looking for gamers, I was like, I'm immediately putting that on my resume and all this and that. So I was like, 30 years of gaming experience. You ain't gonna find nobody better. All this and that. Obviously, I listed all my military experience and stuff too, and previous history. And so I went over for an interview, and I was called in the next couple of days. I told FMO deuces, and they were like, "You're not even going to give us 2 weeks." I was like, "Nah, this place sucks." And so now I'm making really good money, like way too much money. I bought a house, and I'm messing around with VR gaming headsets and PCs. I'm getting to help put computers together, find parts, build stuff around software, and just compile a simulator from the ground up to help the Joint Jet pilot training out here at Shepherd train better pilots faster. And it has been so much better for me. Like, I have never been happier in my life. I've never been more comfortable. After my autism diagnosis, after getting this job and getting a house and having my own space that I can customize. I don't know if you could see it. So I was able to, while I was working at FMO, I started getting into D&D a whole lot more. And I decided I didn't have a good gaming table, so I built one, and I put a TV in it. And now I can play these really cool maps, and I have the whole table dedicated to D&D.
That's awesome.
And
I mean,
yeah,
that's
my dreams are coming true.
Well, but I mean, that's really what the people that have ran across. Like the people that have ran across in the military, like that's all I want, whether it's in the military, out of the military, like because you want those happy things for them, and that's the thing. So I never felt it. It always felt weird with you there, because I'm like this like I said, this dude's too smart. This dude's entirely too smart to be in this stupid fucking career field. And it's a necessary one for anybody that's fucking watching this. Like, I don't mean to dog on the career field as much as I do. I never felt fulfilled. I know plenty of people that did. Matter of fact, Jamie, who I had a show with earlier, is retiring out of that career field. And yes, he moved on to other things. But yeah, it's one of those things. I want to see people prosper, and sometimes it's not always in the military. It's not always in those career fields. And so it's like to see you get out of the military and struggle. Like it's not even like you got out of the military like on good terms. Like you struggled getting out.
Yeah, that was rough.
And then you struggled immediately after. Like it wasn't like this wasn't the best case scenario for fucking Samuel J. Starkey the Fourth.
Yeah.
But fucking the fact that you're like you found your way. That's all I ever wanted to see for the people that I came across. Whether or not I got along with them was kind of irrelevant. Obviously, might have cared a little less about where their lives went after I stopped seeing them. But to see people like you get out and be doing so much better, I wanted to highlight that type of thing because I do still hear that same narrative that I heard when I joined, is that, well, what are you going to do if you get out? And the honest truth is you might float for a little bit. Might float for a little bit. You might be real fucking confused. You might be real unsure of what you're doing. And you may end up finding yourself into a job where you make way too much money by your estimation, and have fun and love it.
Yeah. And I definitely spent a year floating. It took a year to get to the VR job, and God dang it. Is there something wrong with that cable? It took a year I was working at GameStop. I was living in an apartment, and then I had to get another job. And 2020 was not my year at all.
I don't think it was a lot of people's year, brother.
2019. And 2020 stuff started to turn around. And then they were like, pandemic.
In that case, I'm glad, that 2020 was good for somebody. But I mean, that's the thing, though, is, and it's good to see. Like, I really do enjoy hearing that you're doing so much better, that you're happier. When you hit me with the personal news about your mental health stuff the other day, I was like, I mean, for me, it all clicked. Like, for me, I was like, we had enough conversations to where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
I felt compelled to have a few conversations with some people that I had interacted with within recent years. And I told them that, and they were like, huh, makes sense. And I was like, yeah, to me too, but can you act a little more shocked?
I mean, it's one of those things, because it's like, obviously, we're friends, so like whether or not we're separated by a lot of space. Unfortunately for me, a lot of my friendships are very separated, and it's like, hey, I don't do the best job keeping up with people. But when again, this nice little creative outlet for me has opened up avenues to where I can interact with you guys and be a little more vocal and learn about you. And like I said, all the stuff that I've learned about the people that have come on my shows, like I have not had a single guest come on that I didn't learn something about, whether it was on the show or just talking before it.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, I've really valued seeing, again, you felt comfortable enough to tell me that, and then to share it on the show means a whole lot, because I hope to God that, people watch these and are like, oh shit, like, I know how that felt, or like I was there too.
Yeah. So. I think you have a great setup, man. I think the show is a great format. Definitely, I try to watch as much as I can, and I hope that there are people out there watching it, because I really do think it's awesome. It's definitely a good outlet, and as long as you have that mindset where you're just like, I'm doing this because I enjoy it, I think it'll be successful for you, no matter what.
We're gonna keep doing this until I don't know, until YouTube,
you get banned from the internet.
Well, yeah, I mean, until YouTube, shuts me off, or StreamYard shuts me off, and like, okay, man, you've taken up enough of our storage. We're sick of you.
Yeah. Get that stinking mustache out of here.
Realistically, it's I want to keep having people on, and if people want to be repeat coming on the show, like I'm happy to have them. Whether something strikes them and they want to talk about it. Again, that's what I want for this show. I'm gonna keep running it out until I can't.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man.
And like I said, that my favorite ones are really, again, talking to you and everybody else that have come on and learning more. Because I've told people I'm not trying to steal anything from Joe Rogan, but like, I'm a fucking idiot. I'm intelligent, but I'm also a fucking idiot. And I know a lot of smart people that know a fuck ton more than me, and I want to learn from them. But what I also want to do is help. Whether it's actual knowledge education or emotional education or just fucking bullshit. Like I want to keep sharing that with people, and I want people to keep feeling comfortable enough to come on the show and share it.
For sure. Well, I definitely did. I'm a super shy person, so
yeah, I'm glad you felt comfortable, man. I really, it means a lot that people will open up on the show, because again, people may watch this, people may not. I'll be honest, I kind of do this for me. I kind of do it for you, and anybody else who wants to come on. So I appreciate all the honesty you brought on the show today, brother.
Yeah. Your followership is about to go through the roof, by the way. I'm pretty amazing.
Yes. Finally,
but no,
like 17 episodes in, but
no, I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that you had me on, or were willing to have me on, rather.
Anybody that's got us, and I told you this because you and I talked real early in this process. I want to hear people's stories, and obviously, I want them to be interesting, and to me, yours really is. You not. I mean, if we're being frank about it, you kind of having a fucking awful time in the military. To thriving outside of it. I don't want to sugarcoat it.
But I'm also doing CrossFit. I'm getting in super shape. Still single, by the way, ladies.
This is what the show's revolving. This is the point. This is how I know we're at the point in the show where it's time to start wrapping it up.
Getting punchy. I do have 2 cars.
Jesus. All right. Yeah. So as I do with every guest, brother, you got anything you want to promote? You got any words of wisdom for the people? If you got both, I want you to share them. So what do you got for me?
Well, first of all, good vibes. I always want to promote good vibes. Like I think that being positive is super important. Positivity and honesty are the most important thing to me. So as far as promoting ideals, that's all me right there. But I am also doing my own creative outlet through YouTube and Twitch. I'm at twitch.tv/Insomniac. That's spelled with a K and my name in the middle. Sam. Yep.
Okay.
And same on YouTube. I don't have my own URL. I'm not super popular yet. But maybe I will
get your viewership to go through the roof.
Yeah, for sure. But I am really enjoying that stuff too, and I'm trying to get more into that. But I am busy with work, so hard to balance. But I'm finding the time, and I'm really loving it. It's so much fun.
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. All right. Well, if that's all Sam's got for us, I've got to do my own promoting. Again, and until they tell me to stop, mentioning them, I'm gonna keep doing it. As always, first up, Taj TV, TAIJH TV. He is on Facebook. He is on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, all his shit. Tomorrow I will be on his show. If that fucking matters to people. But again, he's a good dude. He's a funny dude. Sometimes he's an inappropriate dude. But I fucking love the guy. He's good shit. I wouldn't promote him if I didn't believe in him. Again, like, share, follow the guy. YouTube and on Facebook, and I believe he's also on Instagram. Marcus over at Truth Valley Church, I believe will also be on Taj TV tomorrow. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. If church is not for you, this advertisement's not for you. I believe in what the guy does. He's doing great things through Christ. I know it's not for everybody. But if you're interested at all, go check him out. He is on Facebook at Truth Valley Church. And last, Jason, he was on, I don't know, I think it's like 3 or 4 shows ago. Jason over at the Arizona Flag Company does great fucking work. I'm super impressed by it, mainly because he was always the goofy guy I just worked with at the prison. But again, he shared his story on the show. I appreciate him sharing that personal story of how he got started with his business. He does great work. He does great work, and he's getting better with every flag he does. Again, doesn't have to just be the American flag or something for law enforcement. As he said on his, the show he did with me, if you want something political, as long as you're not, trying to start shit with people, he'll put it on there. If you have a favorite sports team, he'll do what he can for you. And best of all, if you mention the podcast, he'll give you 10% off.
Ew.
Free stuff. Everybody likes free stuff. I mean, maybe not so much this podcast. This podcast is free, and I don't know how many people are watching, but that's fine. I'm going to keep running them out. I don't care who don't watch. I'm going to keep doing it. But if you want to share it, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which, again, is just a lot of these. as I deploy, I'll probably start releasing shorter videos and probably have to cut down to one show a week. But I like doing this. I like talking to people. I like hearing their stories. And again, sometimes I just talk about sports, and that's a little less fun.
Boring stuff.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's boring for me, but again, I like talking to everybody. So
I'll definitely be sharing this episode, by the way. I want everybody to see.
All right. If you have any questions, whether it's, hey, Kyle, I think you're wrong because of this, you want to come on the show, you want to get in contact about helping out in some, form or fashion, Kyle the Wait at Gmail, KYLE the Wait, WAIT at Gmail. It's on the little bottom scrolling thing. Again, you can add my Instagram. I don't do a whole lot with it because I'm not super social media savvy. And again, YouTube, Waiting Room Podcast. As always, I'm gonna keep promoting. Be fucking nice to each other. This world's just it's kind of not being as nice as it probably once was. But the only thing we can do is we can only control what we do. So that's all I ask is people watching the show, just be kind to each other, help each other out, be there for each other. I don't know what my plans are for next week. We may do one show, we may do two shows. But until next week, I appreciate everybody that watches. And as I said, be kind.